I'm Dr. Sloane Blackwood, 29, standing in the corner of my sister Maya's extravagant wedding reception, watching her glide across the dance floor in her $1,000 dress while guests fawn over her perfect day. To everyone here, I'm just Maya's younger sister who works at some clinic downtown. What they don't know is that I'm the youngest cardiac surgeon ever appointed as chief of cardiothoracic surgery at Metropolitan General Hospital. Maya has spent years introducing me as just a nurse or medical assistant, and I've let her, too tired from years of being overshadowed, to correct the record. But tonight, when she decided to humiliate me in front of her new husband, Dr. Marcus Williams, a respected orthopedic surgeon, everything changed. Let me tell you what happened when the truth finally came out. Growing up as Maya Blackwood's little sister was like living in a perpetual state of eclipse. She was 3 years older, naturally charismatic, and seemed to effortlessly excel at everything that mattered to our parents. In our upper-middle-class household in suburban Connecticut, Maya was the golden child who could do no wrong. She was homecoming queen, valedictorian, and headed to Yale on a full scholarship, while I was the quiet one who spent her Friday nights studying in her room. Our parents, Richard and Catherine Blackwood, weren't intentionally cruel, but they had a way of making Maya's achievements the centerpiece of every family gathering, while mine became footnotes. When Maya made varsity cheerleading as a sophomore, my father called his entire office to brag. When I won the state science fair that same year, he mentioned it once at dinner and moved on to discussing Maya's latest college recruitment letter. Sloane's always been the studious one. My mother would tell her bridge club friends, but Maya has that special spark, you know? She's going places. The pattern continued throughout high school. Maya's acceptance to Yale dominated our dinner conversations for weeks. When I got into Johns Hopkins pre-med with a merit scholarship, the celebration lasted exactly one toast before the conversation shifted to Maya's sorority rush plans. I learned early that in the Blackwood family, there was only room for one star, and Maya had claimed that position long before I even understood what was happening. Medical school at Johns Hopkins was my escape. For the first time in my life, I was surrounded by people who valued intelligence and dedication over charisma and social status. I threw myself into my studies with a passion that bordered on obsession. While Maya was posting Instagram photos of her Yale social life, I was spending 18-hour days in anatomy labs and surgical suites. The misunderstanding about my career started during my residency. At a family Christmas gathering 4 years ago, my aunt asked what I was doing with my life. I mentioned I was working at the hospital, assisting in surgeries. Maya, who had just graduated with a marketing degree and landed an entry-level position at a boutique firm, immediately jumped in. "Sloane's a nurse now," she announced with that condescending smile I knew so well. "She's helping doctors with operations and things. It's nice work, very practical." I opened my mouth to correct her. I was a surgical resident, not a nurse, but something stopped me. Maybe it was the exhaustion from a 36-hour shift, or maybe it was the familiar sting of watching Maya command the room's attention. Instead, I just smiled weakly and let the mischaracterization stand. "That's wonderful, dear," my grandmother said, patting my hand. "Nurses are so important. Such selfless work." The lie took on a life of its own. At subsequent family gatherings, Maya would elaborate on my supposed nursing career, describing how I helped out at the hospital and took care of people. She painted a picture of me as a noble but modest healthcare worker, always careful to phrase it in a way that suggested I was content with a supporting role in medicine. What my family didn't know was that I was excelling beyond anyone's expectations. I completed my surgical residency in record time, specializing in cardiothoracic surgery, one of the most demanding and prestigious fields in medicine. By age 26, I was performing complex heart operations with a success rate that made seasoned surgeons take notice. When Metropolitan General offered me the position of Chief of Cardiothoracic Surgery at 28, I became the youngest person ever to hold that title at a major hospital. I published papers in the New England Journal of Medicine. I pioneered a new technique for minimally invasive heart valve repair that was being adopted by hospitals across the country. My salary was 3 times what Maya made in marketing, and I owned a penthouse apartment overlooking Central Park. Yet at family dinners, I remained Sloane the nurse, while Maya regaled everyone with stories of her marketing campaigns for local restaurants. The deception became easier to maintain as the years passed. My work schedule provided the perfect excuse to miss most family gatherings, and when I did attend, I'd grown skilled at deflecting questions about my job. Just helping people get better, I'd say with a modest smile, while internally screaming at the irony. Maya, meanwhile, had crafted an equally elaborate fiction about her own career. She'd parlayed her entry-level marketing position into increasingly grandiose stories of professional success. According to her version of events, she was practically running the agency, landing major clients and being fast-tracked for partnership. She spoke confidently about campaigns and strategies that sounded impressive to our parents, but were largely exaggerated or entirely fictional. The truth was that Maya worked as a mid-level account coordinator at a small firm, handling social media for local businesses. She'd been passed over for promotions multiple times and was struggling to make ends meet in her studio apartment. But our parents didn't need to know that, just as they didn't need to know that their nurse daughter was actually saving lives and advancing medical science. This delicate balance of mutual deception might have continued indefinitely if not for Maya's engagement to Dr. Marcus Williams. Marcus was everything Maya had always wanted in a partner: successful, handsome, and prestigious. As an orthopedic surgeon at Mount Sinai, he moved in the same medical circles where my reputation was well established, though we'd never met personally. Maya had met him at a charity gala where she was working as an event coordinator, and she'd somehow convinced him that she was a high-powered marketing executive. When Maya announced their engagement 6 months ago, our parents were ecstatic. Finally, their golden daughter had landed the successful doctor they'd always dreamed of having in the family. The wedding planning became an all-consuming obsession for my mother, who saw it as the culmination of Maya's perfect life trajectory. I watched from the sidelines as Maya planned the most elaborate wedding our family had ever seen. Every detail was designed to project success and sophistication: the venue at the Plaza Hotel, the designer dress that cost more than most people's cars, the guest list that read like a who's who of New York's medical and social elite. The irony wasn't lost on me that Maya was marrying into the very profession where I'd achieved remarkable success, yet she continued to introduce me as a nurse whenever the topic arose. At the engagement party, I'd listened with gritted teeth as she told Marcus's colleagues about her sweet sister who takes care of patients at the hospital. Marcus had given me a polite smile and said, "Nursing is such important work. Thank you for what you do." I nodded and excused myself to the bathroom, where I stared at my reflection and wondered how I'd let this charade continue for so long. The wedding day arrived with all the fanfare Maya had orchestrated. The ceremony at St. Patrick's Cathedral was beautiful, and I had to admit that Maya looked stunning as she walked down the aisle. For a moment, watching her radiant smile, I felt genuinely happy for my sister despite everything between us. The reception at the plaza was even more extravagant than I'd expected. Crystal chandeliers cast rainbow patterns across tables laden with exotic flowers and gold chargers. The guest list was a mix of Maya's college friends, our extended family, and Marcus's medical colleagues. I recognized several prominent surgeons from Manhattan's top hospitals, people who would know exactly who Dr. Sloane Blackwood was if they made the connection. I'd chosen my outfit carefully, a simple but elegant navy dress that wouldn't draw attention. My strategy was to blend into the background, smile politely when introduced, and survive the evening without any dramatic revelations. I should have known that Maya wouldn't let me off that easily. The trouble started during the cocktail hour. Maya had been drinking champagne since the morning, celebrating what she called the happiest day of her life. Her cheeks were flushed, her gestures more animated than usual, and her voice carried farther across the room than she probably realized. I was standing near the bar, nursing a glass of wine and making small talk with my cousin Jennifer, when Maya approached with Marcus in tow and a group of his colleagues trailing behind them. "Everyone, I want you to meet my baby sister Sloane," Maya announced, her arms sweeping dramatically in my direction. "She's the medical one in the family." Dr. Patterson, the head of orthopedics at Mount Sinai, extended his hand with interest. "Oh, are you in medicine as well?" What's your specialty? Before I could answer, Maya jumped in with a laugh that was just a bit too loud. Oh, Sloane's not a doctor. She's a nurse. But she's very good at what she does, aren't you, sweetie? The condescending tone made my jaw clench, but I managed a tight smile. I work in cardiac care. She's being modest, Maya continued, clearly enjoying having an audience of accomplished physicians. Sloane assists with surgeries and takes care of patients. It's very hands-on work. Not everyone is cut out for the pressure of medical school, you know? The implication hung in the air like a toxic cloud. Dr. Patterson nodded politely, but I caught the slight confusion in his eyes. Something about the introduction didn't quite ring true to him, though he couldn't place why. Marcus squeezed Maya's hand. Maya, maybe we should. No, it's fine, Maya interrupted, her voice growing louder. I'm proud of my sister. She found her calling taking care of people. Not everyone needs to be the star of the show. The last comment was delivered with a smile, but the barb was unmistakable. Several of Marcus's colleagues exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable with the dynamic they were witnessing. Excuse me, I murmured, setting down my wine glass. I need some air. I made my way to the terrace overlooking Central Park, grateful for the cool evening breeze and the distance from Maya's performance. The city sparkled below, and I found myself thinking about all the nights I'd worked late at the hospital, saving lives while Maya crafted her elaborate fictions about both our careers. Dr. Blackwood? I turned to find Dr. Patterson standing in the doorway, his expression curious and somewhat apologetic. I'm sorry, he said, stepping onto the terrace. But did your sister just introduce you as a nurse? My heart began racing. Dr. Patterson was one of the most respected orthopedic surgeons in the city, and I'd published a paper with his cardiothoracic counterpart just 6 months ago. There was no way he wouldn't know who I was if he made the connection. She did, I said carefully. He shook his head with a bewildered smile. I have to ask, are you the Dr. Sloane Blackwood who developed the Blackwood technique for minimally invasive valve repair? The question hung between us like a loaded weapon. I could continue the charade, deny my identity, and maintain the peace. Or I could finally tell the truth and deal with the consequences. Yes, I said quietly. That's me. Dr. Patterson's eyes widened. My God, you're the youngest chief of cardiothoracic surgery in the country. Your work on valve repair is revolutionary. I've been following your research for years. Before I could respond, we were interrupted by the sound of Maya's laughter carrying from inside. She was regaling another group with stories, and I caught fragments of her monologue. My little sister is so humble about her nursing work. She's always been the practical one, while I'm more ambitious. Dr. Patterson heard it too, and his expression shifted from confusion to something approaching disbelief. Did she just say you're a nurse? It's complicated, I said. Dr. Blackwood, he said, his voice serious, you're one of the most accomplished cardiac surgeons in the country. You've saved more lives and advanced cardiac medicine more in 5 years than most doctors do in entire careers. Why would your own sister? He was interrupted by the arrival of Marcus, who'd apparently come looking for his colleague. There you are, Patterson, Marcus said as he stepped onto the terrace. Maya's looking for you inside. She wants to introduce you to... He stopped mid-sentence when he saw me. Oh, hello again. I'm sorry. I didn't catch your name earlier. Sloane, I said simply. Sloane Blackwood, Dr. Patterson added pointedly. Marcus's reaction was immediate and dramatic. His face went completely white, then flushed red, then white again. He stared at me as if seeing a ghost. Sloane Blackwood, he repeated slowly. Dr. Sloane Blackwood? I nodded. The cardiac surgeon? Chief of cardiothoracic surgery at Metropolitan General? Yes. Marcus sat down heavily on one of the terrace chairs, running his hands through his hair. Oh my God. Oh my God. This is impossible. What's impossible? Dr. Patterson asked. Marcus looked up at me with an expression of complete bewilderment. You're Maya's sister. Maya told me you were a nurse. She's been telling everyone you're a nurse. I know, but you're Dr. Sloane Blackwood. You're famous in the cardiac surgery world. I've read your papers. I've attended conferences where your techniques were presented. You're—" he struggled for words. "You're one of the most respected surgeons in the country." The three of us stood in silence for a moment, the weight of the revelation settling between us. From inside, we could hear the continued sounds of celebration, Maya's voice rising above the others as she held court with the wedding guests. "Does she know?" Marcus asked finally. "Does Maya know who you really are?" "She knows I'm a doctor," I said. "She's always known. She just chooses to present me differently." Dr. Patterson shook his head slowly. "This is extraordinary. Maya's been introducing you as a nurse to a room full of doctors who would recognize your name immediately if they made the connection." Marcus stood up abruptly. "I need to talk to her. I need to understand what's happening here." "Marcus, wait," I said. "Please don't make a scene. It's her wedding day." He turned to face me, his expression a mixture of confusion and something that might have been anger. "Sloane, do you understand what this means? I've been condescending to one of the most accomplished cardiac surgeons in the world because my wife told me she was a nurse. I've been married to someone for exactly 4 hours, and I'm discovering that she's been lying about her own sister's career." "She hasn't been lying exactly," I said, though the words felt hollow even as I spoke them. "She just presents things in a certain way." "She told me you assist with surgeries," Marcus said incredulously. "You don't assist with surgeries. You perform the most complex cardiac procedures known to medicine. You literally wrote the textbook that residents study from." Dr. Patterson was watching this exchange with fascination. "How long has this been going on?" "For years," I admitted. "For years?" Marcus's voice cracked. "You've been letting people think you're a nurse for 4 years?" Before I could answer, Maya's voice rang out from the doorway behind us. "There you are," she said brightly, stepping onto the terrace in her elaborate wedding dress. "I've been looking everywhere for my husband and our guests. What are you all doing out here?" The 3 men looked at her, then at me, and the tension in the air became thick enough to cut with a scalpel. "Maya," Marcus said carefully, "we need to talk." "About what?" she asked, her smile faltering slightly as she registered the serious expressions around her. "About your sister," Dr. Patterson said bluntly. Maya's eyes narrowed as she looked between us. "What about her?" Marcus took a deep breath. "Maya, who exactly is your sister?" "You know who she is," Maya said with a forced laugh. "She's Sloane, my little sister. She's a nurse at some hospital downtown." "Which hospital?" Marcus asked. "I don't know, some hospital. Why does it matter?" "Maya," Marcus said slowly, "your sister is Dr. Sloane Blackwood." Maya blinked. "So, she's the chief of cardiothoracic surgery at Metropolitan General Hospital." "That's ridiculous," Maya said automatically. "Sloane's a nurse." Dr. Patterson stepped forward. "Mrs. Williams, your sister is one of the most accomplished cardiac surgeons in the world. She's pioneered surgical techniques that are being used internationally. She's published dozens of papers in major medical journals." Maya looked at me, her expression shifting from confusion to something approaching panic. "That's not—" "Sloane, tell them. Tell them you're a nurse." The moment stretched between us like a chasm. I could lie again, maintain the fiction, protect Maya's wedding day and her carefully constructed image. Or I could finally tell the truth and deal with whatever consequences followed. "I'm not a nurse, Maya," I said quietly. "I'm a cardiac surgeon." The color drained from Maya's face. "You're lying." "No," I said. "I'm not." Marcus was staring at his new wife with an expression I couldn't quite read. "Maya, how could you not know that your own sister is a world-renowned cardiac surgeon?" "Because she's not," Maya insisted, her voice rising. "She's always been she's just a nurse. She takes care of people." "She's not." She gestured helplessly. "She's not important like that." The words hung in the air, revealing more about Maya's worldview than she probably intended. Dr. Patterson looked genuinely shocked, while Marcus appeared to be processing something fundamental about the woman he'd just married. "Maya," I said gently, "I've been a doctor for years. I finished my residency at Johns Hopkins. I've been chief of cardiothoracic surgery for over a year. But you said... Maya's voice was becoming shrill. You told everyone you were a nurse. I never said I was a nurse, I corrected. You said I was a nurse. I just didn't correct you. Maya turned to Marcus, desperation creeping into her voice. She's lying. She's trying to steal attention on my wedding day. She's always been jealous of me. Marcus looked at her for a long moment, then turned to Dr. Patterson. You know her work? Know it. Dr. Patterson laughed incredulously. I've been trying to get Metropolitan General to let me observe her surgeries for months. She's developed techniques that are revolutionizing cardiac care. Maya's face crumpled. This isn't happening. This is my day. My perfect day. Maya, Marcus said softly, why would you tell people your sister was a nurse if she's actually a cardiac surgeon? Because. Maya struggled for words. Because she never corrected me. Because she always lets me be the successful one. She's supposed to be the quiet one, the helper, not. Not what? I asked. Not better than me, Maya whispered, the truth finally spilling out. The silence that followed was deafening. From inside the reception, we could hear the band playing and guests laughing, completely unaware of the drama unfolding on the terrace. Marcus sat down again, his head in his hands. I don't understand any of this. Maya, you told me your sister was a nurse. You've been telling everyone she's a nurse. But she's actually more accomplished in her field than I am in mine. She's not supposed to be, Maya said, tears starting to flow. She's supposed to be the practical one, the one who helps people quietly while I'm the one who succeeds, who makes our parents proud. Maya, I said, my heart breaking for her despite everything. I never wanted to compete with you. Then why didn't you tell them, she demanded. Why didn't you correct me? It was a fair question, and one I'd been asking myself for 4 years. Because I was tired, I said honestly. Tired of always being compared to you, tired of fighting for recognition. It seemed easier to let you have the spotlight. Dr. Patterson cleared his throat. If I may interrupt, this is quite possibly the most bizarre situation I've ever encountered. Dr. Blackwood, you're genuinely one of the most respected cardiac surgeons in the country. Your reputation in medical circles is extraordinary. Maya looked at him with red-rimmed eyes. Are you sure you have the right person? Quite sure, he said gently. Your sister is famous among cardiac surgeons. She's given keynote speeches at international conferences. Her technique for valve repair is being taught in medical schools around the world. Maya turned to me, her wedding makeup streaked with tears. Why didn't you tell me? You never asked, I said simply. You decided who I was years ago, and nothing I could say was going to change your mind. Marcus stood up slowly. I need some time to process this. Maya, we need to talk. Privately. But the reception, Maya protested. Our guests. The guests can wait, Marcus said firmly. We need to discuss why my wife has been lying about her own sister's career. I wasn't lying, Maya said desperately. I thought. You thought what? Marcus asked. Maya's composure finally cracked completely. I thought she was supposed to be less successful than me. She's always been less successful than me. She's the quiet one, the studious one who works hard but doesn't achieve anything spectacular. I'm the one who's supposed to shine. The honesty of the statement was brutal in its simplicity. Maya had built her entire identity around being the more successful sister, and the revelation that I had quietly surpassed her achievements was shattering that carefully constructed self-image. Dr. Patterson excused himself, clearly uncomfortable with the family drama he'd inadvertently helped unleash. Marcus and Maya retreated inside to find a private space to talk, leaving me alone on the terrace with the Manhattan skyline and the weight of 4 years of deception finally lifted from my shoulders. The reception continued without me for the next hour. I stayed on the terrace, watching the city lights and thinking about the conversation that had just unfolded. Part of me felt relief that the truth was finally out. Another part felt guilty for disrupting Maya's wedding day. But mostly, I felt sad for both of us, For the years we'd wasted on this elaborate charade, for the relationship we might have had if we'd been honest with each other. Eventually, my cousin Jennifer found me outside. "Sloane," she said cautiously, "Maya's looking for you. She wants to talk." I found Maya in a small sitting room off the main ballroom, still in her wedding dress, but with her hair disheveled and her makeup repaired. Marcus was nowhere to be seen. "Where's your husband?" I asked. "Getting some air," Maya said bitterly. "He's processing the fact that his wife doesn't actually know her own sister." I sat down across from her. "Maya, I'm sorry this happened today." "Are you?" she asked. "Are you really sorry? Or are you happy that you finally got to upstage me?" The question stung because there was a grain of truth in it. Part of me had been satisfied to see Maya's shock when the truth came out. But that satisfaction was overshadowed by sadness at how we'd reached this point. "I never wanted to upstage you," I said honestly. "I just got tired of being minimized." Maya laughed humorlessly. "Minimized? Sloane, you're apparently some kind of medical superstar and I didn't even know it. How could you let me introduce you as a nurse to a room full of doctors? The same way you could introduce yourself as a marketing executive when you're actually an account coordinator," I replied gently. Maya's eyes widened. "How did you?" "I've always known, Maya. Just like you've always known I was a doctor." We sat in silence for a moment, both of us processing the implications of our mutual deception. "I don't understand," Maya said finally. "If you're so successful, why didn't you tell our parents? Why didn't you tell anyone?" "Because it wouldn't have mattered," I said. "You would have found a way to make it about you, to diminish it somehow. It was easier to just focus on my work and let you have the family spotlight." "That's not fair," Maya protested. "Isn't it? When I got into Johns Hopkins, you made sure everyone knew that Yale was more prestigious. When I graduated medical school summa cum laude, you changed the subject to your new job. Every achievement I've ever had has been overshadowed by whatever you were doing." Maya's face crumpled again. "I didn't mean to. I just needed them to be proud of me." "They were always proud of you," I said. "You were the golden child. I was the one fighting for scraps of attention." "But you were always so smart," Maya said through her tears. "So accomplished. I felt like I had to work twice as hard to get half the recognition you deserved." The irony of her statement wasn't lost on either of us. We'd both been fighting for the same thing, our parents' approval and recognition, while completely misunderstanding each other's position in the family dynamic. "Maya," I said softly, "I think we've both been wrong about a lot of things." She wiped her eyes with a tissue, smearing her makeup further. "Marcus thinks I'm a fraud. He says if I could lie about something this basic, what else have I been lying about? Have you been lying about other things?" Maya nodded miserably. "My job, my salary, my apartment. I've been pretending to be more successful than I actually am because I thought that's what he wanted. And now he's questioning everything about our relationship. He's wondering if he really knows me at all." I felt a pang of sympathy for my sister, despite everything that had happened. "What are you going to do?" "I don't know," Maya admitted. "Start telling the truth, I guess. Figure out who I actually am instead of who I've been pretending to be." We were interrupted by a knock on the door. Marcus entered, his expression serious, but calmer than it had been on the terrace. "Ladies," he said formally, "I think we need to clear the air." Maya looked up at him hopefully. "Marcus, I can explain." "No," he said gently but firmly. "I think we've had enough explanations for one evening. What I need is honesty. Complete honesty."
He turned to me.
"Dr. Blackwood, I owe you an apology. I've been unconsciously condescending to you all evening because of what I was told about your profession. That was inexcusable, regardless of the circumstances."
"Thank you," I said.
"But you had no way of knowing." "Perhaps not, but I should have. Your reputation in cardiac surgery is formidable. I feel like an idiot for not making the connection." He turned back to Maya. "And you, my dear wife, have some serious explaining to do. Not just about Sloane, but about yourself as well." Maya's face went pale. "What do you mean?" "I mean that Dr. Patterson mentioned some things about your supposed marketing career that don't quite add up." I think it's time for complete honesty about everything. The next few hours were among the most difficult of Maya's life. In that small sitting room, while their wedding reception continued without them, Maya had to confess the full extent of her professional fabrications. She admitted to exaggerating her job title, her salary, her responsibilities, and her prospects for advancement. She revealed that she'd been struggling financially and had been living beyond her means to maintain the image of success she thought Marcus expected. Marcus, to his credit, listened without judgment, though I could see the pain in his eyes as he realized how extensively his new wife had deceived him. When Maya finished her confession, they sat in silence for several minutes. "I need some time," Marcus said finally. "This is a lot to process." "Are you leaving me?" Maya asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know," Marcus said honestly. "I love you, Maya, but I'm discovering that the person I fell in love with was largely a fiction. I need to figure out if I can love the real you." With that, he left the room, leaving Maya and me alone again. "I've ruined everything," Maya said, fresh tears streaming down her face. "Maybe," I said gently. "Or maybe you've finally given yourself a chance to build something real." "How can you be so calm about this?" Maya demanded. "I've been terrible to you for years, and now I've destroyed my marriage on my wedding day." "Because I understand," I said simply. "I understand what it's like to feel like you have to be someone else to be worthy of love." Maya looked at me with surprise. "You do? Why do you think I hid my career for 4 years? I was so tired of competing with you, so exhausted from never feeling good enough, that I chose to make myself smaller rather than fight for recognition." "But you're so successful," Maya protested. "Professionally, yes. But personally, I've been living a lie just like you have. I've been so focused on avoiding conflict with you that I've hidden who I really am from everyone who matters." We sat together in that room for another hour, two sisters finally having the honest conversation we should have had years ago. Maya talked about her insecurities, her fear of being ordinary, her desperate need to be seen as special. I talked about my exhaustion with family dynamics, my decision to focus solely on my career, and my own fears about never being enough. By the time we emerged from the sitting room, the reception was winding down. Many guests had left, and those who remained were clearly curious about the bride's long absence. Maya made brief excuses about wedding stress and exhaustion, while I slipped out quietly through a side exit. The days following Maya's wedding were a period of intense reckoning for our entire family. Marcus stayed in a hotel while he processed the revelations about his new wife. Maya moved back in with our parents temporarily, unable to afford her expensive apartment on her actual salary. And I found myself fielding calls from relatives who had heard through the family grapevine about my real profession. My parents were perhaps the most shocked of anyone. When they learned the truth about my career, they were a mixture of proud, hurt, and confused. My mother cried for an hour, devastated that she had missed so many important milestones in my professional life. My father kept asking why I hadn't told them, unable to understand how the family dynamic had become so dysfunctional that his daughter felt the need to hide her remarkable achievements. "We would have been so proud," my mother said through her tears. "We are so proud. Why didn't you tell us?" "Because it never seemed to matter," I said honestly. "Maya's accomplishments always took center stage. I stopped trying to compete for your attention." "But we've always been proud of both of you," my father protested. "Have you?" I asked gently. Because from where I was sitting, it always seemed like Maya was the star, and I was the supporting character. The conversation that followed was painful, but necessary. My parents had to confront their own role in creating a family dynamic where one daughter felt the need to exaggerate her achievements while the other felt compelled to hide hers. They acknowledged that they had perhaps paid more attention to Maya's more dramatic successes while taking my steady achievements for granted. Maya's marriage hung in the balance for several weeks. Marcus eventually agreed to counseling, but he made it clear that their relationship would require complete honesty moving forward. Maya had to rebuild not just her relationship with her husband, but her entire sense of self. She quit her marketing job and enrolled in a graduate program in nonprofit management, pursuing work that genuinely interested her rather than trying to impress others. She moved into a modest apartment that she could actually afford and began the difficult work of figuring out who she was when she wasn't performing for an audience. As for me, I had to learn how to exist authentically within my family for the first time in years. I started sharing details about my work, inviting my parents to hospital events, and even gave a presentation about cardiac surgery at my cousin's medical school. It felt strange and wonderful to be recognized for my actual achievements rather than hiding them. The relationship between Maya and me remained complicated. Years of resentment and misunderstanding couldn't be erased overnight, but we began having regular coffee meetings where we practiced radical honesty with each other. We discovered that we both felt like failures in different ways. She because she wasn't as successful as she pretended to be, and I because I felt invisible despite my actual success. 3 months after the wedding, Maya and Marcus renewed their vows in a small ceremony with just immediate family present. This time, Maya introduced me accurately as Dr. Sloane Blackwood, Chief of Cardiothoracic Surgery at Metropolitan General Hospital. There was no fanfare, no dramatic revelations, just simple, honest truth. The ceremony was beautiful in its simplicity. Maya wore a simple white dress instead of the elaborate gown from her first wedding. Marcus's vows focused on accepting and loving the real Maya, not the performance she had been putting on. When they exchanged rings again, it felt like they were actually meeting each other for the first time. At the small reception afterward, I found myself in conversation with Dr. Patterson, who had been invited as a family friend. He shook his head with amusement as he watched Maya and me talking normally together. "You know," he said, "in 30 years of medicine, I've never encountered anything quite like what happened at that wedding. It was like watching a medical mystery unfold in real time." "I'm just glad it's over," I said honestly. "Is it though?" he asked perceptively. "These kinds of family dynamics don't usually resolve themselves overnight." He was right, of course. The months that followed were filled with difficult conversations, therapy sessions, and gradual rebuilding of trust. Maya struggled with depression as she confronted the gap between her imagined life and her reality. I had to learn how to be vulnerable with my family instead of hiding behind professional achievements. Our parents also had to do their own work, examining how their unconscious favoritism and assumptions had contributed to the dysfunction. They started family therapy sessions, something that would have been unthinkable before the wedding revelation. 6 months after the wedding disaster, I received an unexpected call from Maya. She was crying, but this time it wasn't from despair. "Sloane," she said through her tears, "I got accepted into the graduate program at Columbia, the nonprofit management one I told you about." "Maya, that's wonderful," I said, genuinely happy for her. "But that's not why I'm calling," she continued. "I'm calling because I wanted to tell you something I should have said years ago. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of what you've accomplished, and I'm sorry it took me so long to say it." The words hit me harder than I expected. After years of craving that recognition from my sister, hearing it felt both healing and heartbreaking. "Thank you," I managed to say. "I know I can't undo the damage I've done," Maya continued. "I know I can't take back all the times I minimized your achievements or made you feel invisible. But I want you to know that I see you now. I see how remarkable you are, and I'm sorry I was too insecure to see it before." That conversation marked a turning point in our relationship. We began meeting for coffee every Sunday, a tradition that continues to this day. We talk about our work, our relationships, our hopes and fears. Sometimes we argue, and sometimes old patterns resurface, but we've learned to call each other out when we slip into our old roles. Maya graduated from her program with honors and now works as a development director for a children's hospital. The irony isn't lost on either of us that she ended up in healthcare too, though in a very different capacity. She's genuinely good at her work and finds fulfillment in fundraising for pediatric programs. Her marriage to Marcus grew stronger as they built a foundation of honesty. They moved to a smaller apartment that they could afford on their real salaries, and Maya learned to find joy in authentic achievements rather than fabricated ones. As for me, I continued advancing in my career, but I also began sharing my journey more openly. I started mentoring young women in medicine, particularly those who struggled with imposter syndrome or family dynamics that undermined their confidence. I gave a TEDx talk titled "The Cost of Hiding Your Light" about my experience of concealing my achievements and the importance of authentic success. The video went viral in medical circles and led to speaking engagements at medical schools across the country. 1 year after the wedding, Maya surprised me by attending one of my lectures at Johns Hopkins. She sat in the front row, beaming with pride as I discussed new developments in cardiac surgery. Afterward, she introduced herself to medical students as Dr. Blackwood's sister, with genuine enthusiasm. "It must be amazing to have such an accomplished sister," one student said to her. "It is," Maya replied without hesitation. "She's my hero." The student then asked Maya what she did for work. "I'm a development director at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia," Maya said proudly. "I help raise money for kids who need heart surgery, sometimes surgery that my sister pioneered." Watching Maya own her real achievements while celebrating mine felt like a miracle after years of competition and deception. 2 years post-wedding, our family dynamics had shifted dramatically. Sunday dinners at my parents' house became celebrations of both daughters' real lives rather than performances of imagined success. My mother learned to ask specific questions about my surgeries and Maya's fundraising campaigns. My father started reading medical journals to better understand my work. Maya and Marcus bought a house they could actually afford and started talking about having children. Maya jokes that she wants to make sure any future nieces or nephews know exactly what Aunt Sloane does for a living. "No more mysterious family careers," she says with a laugh. Complete transparency from day one. The professional world began to take notice of my story as well. Medical journals published articles about the importance of work-life balance and family support in high-stress careers. I was invited to speak at conferences about maintaining authentic relationships while pursuing demanding professions. But perhaps the most meaningful recognition came from an unexpected source. Maya nominated me for a humanitarian award given by the hospital where she worked. The nomination letter, which she read aloud at the award ceremony, brought tears to my eyes. Dr. Sloane Blackwood has saved hundreds of lives through her surgical innovations and compassionate patient care.
But she also saved me.
She's saved our family. By finally sharing her truth, she gave us all permission to be authentic. She taught us that love doesn't require perfection, and that real success comes from being genuinely yourself. Standing on that stage, accepting an award nominated by the sister who had once minimized my achievements, I felt a sense of completion I hadn't known I was seeking. The audience that night included medical professionals, hospital donors, and Maya's colleagues. When I finished my acceptance speech, Maya stood up and started clapping. Soon, the entire audience was on their feet, and I saw my parents in the crowd, tears streaming down their faces as they applauded both their daughters. Later that evening, at the reception, a young medical student approached me. She was nervous, clearly starstruck by meeting someone whose work she'd studied. "Dr. Blackwood," she said shyly, "I've read all your papers on valve repair. Your techniques are incredible." "Thank you," I replied. "What's your name?" "Jennifer Park," she said. "I'm a third year at NYU, hoping to match into cardiothoracic surgery." "That's wonderful. It's a challenging field, but incredibly rewarding." She hesitated, then said, "Can I ask you something personal? I heard about your story, about how you kept your career secret from your family. My family doesn't really understand my ambitions either. They think medicine is too demanding for women, that I should choose something more traditional." I looked at this young woman, so reminiscent of my younger self, struggling with family expectations and her own ambitions. "Jennifer," I said, "let me tell you what I wish someone had told me years ago. Your achievements don't diminish anyone else's worth, and hiding your light doesn't actually protect the people you love. It just deprives the world of what you have to offer." She nodded thoughtfully. "How do you handle it when family members don't support your goals?" "You love them anyway," I said simply. "But you don't make yourself smaller to make them comfortable. You be exactly who you're meant to be, and you give them the opportunity to rise to the occasion." Maya appeared beside us, having overheard the conversation. "Jennifer," she said warmly, "I'm Maya Williams, Sloane's sister. I can tell you from experience that sometimes family members need time to understand how extraordinary their loved ones are. But when they finally get it, the pride and love they feel is incredible. Jennifer looked between us, sensing the deep bond that had been forged through our struggles.
Thank you both, she said.
This gives me hope. After Jennifer left, Maya and I stood together watching the reception wind down. Do you ever regret it? Maya asked quietly. Keeping the secret for so long? I considered the question carefully. I regret the time we lost, I said finally. I regret the years we spent misunderstanding each other. But I don't regret the journey that brought us here. Even though it was painful, especially because it was painful, the easy path would have been to keep pretending forever. We might have maintained surface harmony, but we never would have had this. I gestured between us, encompassing the honest relationship we'd built. Maya nodded. I never would have had to face my own lies either. I might still be pretending to be someone I'm not. And I might still be hiding in the shadows of my own life. We hugged then, a real embrace between two women who had finally learned to see each other clearly. 3 years after the wedding that changed everything, I was invited to give the commencement speech at Johns Hopkins Medical School. The invitation was particularly meaningful because it came from my alma mater, the place where I'd first discovered my passion for cardiac surgery. As I stood at the podium looking out at the graduating class, I thought about my own graduation day years earlier. Maya had been there, of course, but she'd spent most of the day talking about her own job prospects rather than celebrating my achievement. My parents had been proud but somewhat bewildered by the intensity of medical training. This time was different. Maya sat in the front row with Marcus, both of them beaming with pride. My parents were there too, my mother clutching a program with my photo on the cover. In the audience, I spotted Dr. Patterson and several other colleagues who had become friends over the years. Graduates, I began, you are embarking on a profession that will challenge every aspect of who you are. You will save lives and you will lose patients. You will experience triumphs that fill you with joy and failures that humble you to your core. I paused, looking out at the eager young faces. But perhaps the greatest challenge you'll face won't be in the operating room or the intensive care unit. It will be maintaining your authentic self while navigating the pressures of a demanding career and complex relationships. I went on to tell my story, the years of hiding my achievements, the family dynamics that led to that deception, and the liberation that came from finally living authentically. I spent 4 years of my career pretending to be less than I was, I said. I convinced myself I was protecting my family relationships, but what I was really doing was depriving them of the opportunity to know and love the real me. The graduates listened intently as I described the wedding revelation and its aftermath. The truth, when it finally came out, was painful for everyone involved. But it was also the beginning of something beautiful, authentic relationships built on genuine understanding rather than comfortable lies. I concluded with a challenge. As you begin your medical careers, I urge you to be exactly who you are. Don't hide your achievements to make others comfortable. Don't diminish your light to avoid outshining someone else. The world needs doctors who are not only clinically excellent, but also authentically themselves. The standing ovation that followed was thunderous. But what moved me most was seeing Maya in the front row, tears streaming down her face as she applauded. At the reception afterward, countless people approached me to share their own stories of family dynamics and professional struggles. A young resident told me about hiding her research publications from her boyfriend, who felt threatened by her success. An attending physician described minimizing her achievements to avoid her mother's jealousy. Your story gives me courage, one young doctor said. I've been pretending my work isn't important because my family doesn't understand it. But you're right, I'm not protecting them. I'm just making myself smaller. Maya overheard this conversation and joined us. It's harder in the short term, she said to the young doctor. When Sloane finally told the truth, it shattered some of my illusions about myself and our family. But it also gave us the chance to build something real. What advice would you give to someone whose family doesn't support their career? The doctor asked. Maya and I exchanged glances, years of healing and understanding passing between us. Love them enough to be honest, Maya said. and give them the chance to rise to the occasion. Sometimes people surprise you. And if they don't, the doctor pressed. Then you love them anyway, I said. But you don't sacrifice your authentic self. You can't build genuine relationships on a foundation of lies, no matter how well-intentioned. As the evening wound down, Maya and I found ourselves alone on a balcony overlooking the Hopkins campus. I never imagined we'd be here, Maya said, leaning against the railing. 3 years ago, I thought my life was falling apart. Now I feel like I'm finally living it. Do you miss it? I asked. The person you used to pretend to be? Maya considered this seriously. Sometimes, she admitted. She was more glamorous, more successful on paper. But she wasn't real. And I was exhausted from trying to maintain that image. I know the feeling. The weird thing is, Maya continued, I'm actually happier now. My real job is challenging and meaningful. My marriage is based on honesty. Even my relationship with our parents is better because they're not comparing me to some fictional version of you. I smiled. Speaking of our parents, did you see Dad talking to that cardiac surgery resident earlier? Oh my God, yes. He was explaining your valve repair technique to her like he invented it himself. We both laughed, remembering a time when our father barely acknowledged my medical career. They've come a long way, I said. We all have. As we prepared to leave, Maya turned to me with a serious expression. Sloane, I want you to know something. Even when I was at my worst, even when I was putting you down to make myself feel better, I always knew you were special. I think that's part of why I worked so hard to diminish your achievements. Deep down, I knew you were going to be extraordinary, and I was terrified of being forgotten. Her honesty still had the power to surprise me, even after years of authentic conversations. You are never going to be forgotten, I said gently. You're my sister. You'll always matter to me, regardless of what either of us achieves professionally. I know that now, she said. But it took almost destroying my marriage and humiliating myself at my own wedding to figure it out. We hugged goodbye, and I watched Maya walk back into the reception to find Marcus. Seeing them together now, knowing their relationship had survived such a fundamental crisis and emerged stronger, gave me hope for my own future relationships. That night, as I drove home to my apartment overlooking Central Park, I reflected on the journey that had brought me to this point. The young woman who had hidden her achievements to avoid family conflict seemed like a different person now. I thought about all the opportunities I'd missed to share my successes, all the moments of pride I'd kept to myself. But I also thought about the relationships I'd built since choosing authenticity. The mentoring relationships with young doctors, the deeper connection with my parents, and most importantly, the genuine bond one now shared with Maya. My phone buzzed with a text message from Maya. Thank you for being brave enough to tell the truth. It saved us all. I smiled as I typed back. Thank you for being brave enough to hear it. For years after the wedding that changed everything, I received news that would test our family's newfound authenticity in a different way. I had been offered the position of chief of cardiac surgery at Harvard Medical School and Massachusetts General Hospital, one of the most prestigious positions in my field. The offer came with international recognition, a substantial salary increase, and the opportunity to lead groundbreaking research programs. It was, by any measure, the pinnacle of cardiac surgery careers. But it also meant leaving New York, leaving the hospital where I'd built my reputation, and leaving the family relationships I'd worked so hard to repair. I called Maya first. Harvard, she screamed into the phone. Sloane, that's incredible. That's the top of the mountain in your field. It is, I agreed. But it means moving to Boston. There was a pause as the implications sank in. When would you have to decide? She asked. 2 weeks. And when would you start? This fall. Another pause. Sloane, you have to take it. This is everything you've worked for. Her immediate support surprised me. The old Maya might have found reasons why the opportunity wasn't as great as it seemed, or ways to make it about herself. This Maya was genuinely excited for my success. Are you sure? I asked. We've just gotten to a good place as a family. Which is exactly why I'm sure, she said firmly. 4 years ago, I would have been secretly relieved to see you move away, because I was threatened by your success. Now I'm just proud of you. Distance doesn't change that. When I told my parents about the Harvard offer, their reaction was similarly supportive. My father immediately started researching the cardiac surgery program, while my mother began planning visits to Boston. "We're so proud of you, sweetheart," my mother said, tears in her eyes. "This is what you've been working toward your whole career." "But we'll miss you terribly," my father added. "These last few years, getting to really know you and understand your work, they've been some of the best years of our lives." The decision ultimately came down to whether I was ready to prioritize my career ambitions over the comfort of family proximity. It was a question I couldn't have even considered honestly 4 years earlier, when I was still hiding my achievements. I accepted the Harvard position. The going-away party my family threw for me was unlike any celebration I'd ever experienced. Instead of the awkward family gatherings of the past, this was a genuine celebration of my achievements and our relationships. Maya gave a toast that brought everyone to tears. For years ago, I didn't even know who my sister really was. I was so caught up in my own insecurities that I couldn't see the extraordinary person standing right next to me. "Sloane, you're not just an incredible surgeon, you're an incredible human being. Harvard is lucky to have you, and I'm lucky to be your sister." Dr. Patterson, who had become a close family friend since the wedding incident, also spoke. "In all my years in medicine, I've never met anyone who combines clinical excellence with such genuine humanity. Dr. Blackwood, you're going to revolutionize cardiac care at Harvard just like you did here." But perhaps the most meaningful moment came when my father stood up to speak. This man who had once barely acknowledged my medical career now spoke with obvious pride about my achievements. "When Sloane first told us she wanted to be a doctor, I worried about the demands of medical school, the stress of surgical training, the challenges of building a practice," he said. "What I never worried about was whether she had the intelligence, the dedication, or the heart to succeed. Those qualities have been evident since she was a child." He paused, his voice becoming emotional. "What I regret is that it took me so long to fully appreciate what she was accomplishing. I'm proud of both my daughters, but tonight I want to celebrate Sloane's extraordinary journey and the amazing future ahead of her at Harvard." As I looked around the room that night, at Maya beaming with genuine pride, and my parents openly celebrating my achievements, at colleagues who had become friends, I felt a sense of completeness I'd never experienced before. The move to Boston was bittersweet. Leaving New York meant leaving the city where I'd built my career and rebuilt my family relationships. But it also represented the culmination of years of authentic living and the courage to pursue my highest aspirations. Maya and Marcus helped me pack my apartment, a process that took longer than expected because Maya kept finding mementos from my career that she wanted to hear stories about. "I can't believe I missed all of this," she said, holding a photo from a medical conference where I'd received an award. "Look how happy you look here." I was happy, I said. But I was also lonely. I couldn't share these moments with the people who mattered most to me. "Well, you won't have that problem anymore," Maya said firmly. "I want to hear about every surgery, every research breakthrough, every professional milestone. I have 4 years of sisterly pride to make up for." On my last day in New York, Maya and I had coffee at our usual Sunday spot one final time. "I'm scared," I admitted. "Not about the job, I know I can handle the medical side, but about maintaining these relationships from a distance." Maya reached across the table and took my hand. "Sloane, we survived years of lies and resentment while living in the same city. I think we can handle honesty from a few hundred miles away." She was right, of course. The foundation we'd built over the past 4 years was strong enough to withstand physical distance. "Besides," she added with a grin, "Marcus and I have been talking about having kids. You're going to want to be close enough to spoil your future nieces and nephews." The thought of Maya as a mother, raising children with the emotional intelligence she developed through our family's healing process, filled me with joy. My first year at Harvard exceeded every expectation. The cardiac surgery program was world-class, the research opportunities were limitless, and my colleagues welcomed me with respect and enthusiasm. I published several groundbreaking papers, pioneered new surgical techniques, and began training the next generation of cardiac surgeons. But more importantly, I maintained the authentic relationships I'd fought so hard to build. Maya and I talked every Sunday, sharing the details of our lives without pretense or competition. My parents visited monthly, taking obvious pride in showing friends photos of their daughter's Harvard office. Maya's pregnancy announcement came during one of our Sunday calls. She was 8 weeks along and glowing with happiness. "I want to name the baby after you, if it's a girl," she said. "Would that be okay?"
I was so moved I could barely speak.
"Maya, I would be honored." "Good, because Marcus already agreed. He says any daughter of ours should have a name associated with saving lives." 9 months later, I was in the delivery room when my niece Sloane Catherine Williams made her entrance into the world. Holding her for the first time, I thought about the family she was being born into, one where authenticity was valued over performance, where success was celebrated rather than hidden, and where love was expressed through truth rather than comfortable lies. "She's perfect," I whispered, tears streaming down my face. "She is," Maya agreed, looking exhausted but radiant. "And she's going to grow up knowing exactly who her amazing aunt is." As I write this story now, 5 years after the wedding that changed everything, I'm preparing for another major milestone. I've been asked to give the keynote address at the International Cardiac Surgery Conference, the most prestigious gathering in my field. But more importantly, Maya, Marcus, and baby Sloane are coming to Boston to attend the conference. For the first time in my career, my family will be in the audience when I present my research to the global cardiac surgery community. Maya called last week to tell me she'd bought a new dress for the occasion. "I want to look appropriate for such an important event," she said. "I'll be the proudest sister in the audience." "You don't have to dress up for my sake," I told her. "I'm not doing it for your sake," she replied. "I'm doing it because I finally get to publicly celebrate my sister's extraordinary achievements. I've been waiting 5 years for this moment." The little girl who once felt the need to hide her light to avoid outshining her sister has grown into a woman who takes genuine pride in her family's successes. The sister who once minimized my achievements to protect her own ego now actively promotes my work to anyone who will listen. And me? I've learned that authenticity isn't just about being honest with others, it's about being honest with yourself about what you deserve. I deserve to have my achievements celebrated by my family. I deserve to take pride in my work. I deserved relationships built on truth rather than comfortable lies. If you're reading this story and recognizing patterns in your own family, I want you to know that change is possible. It's never too late to start living authentically, even if it means disrupting comfortable dynamics. The short-term pain of truth-telling is worth the long-term joy of genuine relationships. To the young women who might be hiding their achievements to make others comfortable, stop. The world needs your full contribution, not a diminished version of who you really are. Your success doesn't diminish anyone else's worth, and making yourself smaller doesn't actually protect the people you love. To the family members who might be threatened by a loved one's success, consider that your reaction says more about your own insecurities than about their achievements. Love doesn't require competition. There's room for everyone to shine. And to anyone who has ever felt invisible in their own family, you're not invisible. You matter. Your achievements matter. And you deserve relationships where you can be fully, authentically yourself. The truth will set you free, but first, it might disrupt everything you thought you knew about your relationships. That disruption is not destruction. It's the necessary demolition that precedes authentic reconstruction. 5 years ago, I stood in the corner at my sister's wedding reception, hiding who I really was and accepting a diminished role in my own family story. Today, I stand at the pinnacle of my profession, surrounded by people who know and celebrate exactly who I am. The journey from that corner to this podium wasn't easy, but it was worth every difficult conversation, every painful revelation, and every moment of uncertainty. Because the alternative, continuing to live a lie, wasn't really living at all. As I prepare for my keynote address tomorrow, with my family in the audience ready to cheer me on, I'm reminded of something Maya said during one of our coffee conversations. The best thing about telling the truth is that you only have to remember one version of your story. I'm Dr. Sloane Blackwood, chief of cardiac surgery at Harvard Medical School, pioneer of life-saving surgical techniques, and proud sister to Maya Williams. This is my one true story, and I'm finally ready to tell it to the world.